Hello everybody, welcome to Motorsportical. I'm Guy, the Motorsport Oracle. Well, not really, but that's the aim. For now, let's sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink and let's chat motorsport, shall we? So this weekend's the Monaco Grand Prix and I thought we'd do a little preview and cover a little bit about what Monaco is and why it's such a special event. 2021 overview, so let's have a look at last year and break that down a little bit. I'm going to talk about a few keys to winning the race, and then overall my thoughts and sort of the top three as it stands. So Monaco is in its 68th running of the race. It's one of the most famous races on the calendar. It started in 1950, but we had a little bit of a gap throughout its time up to this year. It's a traditional street circuit with little to no overtaking entertainment, so the focus this weekend is going to be on about each individual driver and how they perform and how close they can get to those barriers. It's a circuit that rewards bravery, but in measures, as we found out last year with Charles Leclerc, and we'll go on to that a little bit in the 2021 overview. It's also known obviously for its allure for celebrities, and it's obviously its huge yachts and the spectacle that brings. So let's talk 2021. Okay, last year we went there with Mercedes and Red Bull at its height, Ferrari not so much, but Charles Leclerc qualified on pole at his home event. It was a great lap, but the first lap was the lap that got him the pole position. Everyone went out for their second flying lap, and guess who put it in the barriers? It was Charles Leclerc. So that brought out the red flag and caused him to finish up on pole position. It would have been interesting to see if anyone would have been able to beat the time. I think Leclerc was going, if I remember rightly, he was going quicker anyway. So that would have been interesting to see. But his shunt made sure that it put an end to the session and he qualified on pole. But this is where the problem lies. He caused gearbox damage to his car, and that meant that he wouldn't even start the race last year. It was a tough one, I think, for him to take, especially his home race, and we'll go on a little bit more a little bit later about Charles Leclerc and his home race. But last year, the top three were Verstappen, Sainz and Norris. Obviously second and third, a bit of a surprise package, again considering Ferrari weren't at the peak of its powers like they're showing this year. McLaren were quick last year, but Lando getting on the podium was a bit unexpected. So let's talk about keys to winning the race. We've had a bit of a chat about the 2021 season, but keys to winning the race for me. With little to no overtaking, it could be important that Saturday is absolutely measured to perfection. It might be more important than Sunday. Obviously Sunday's where you get the points and the prizes, but Saturday sets you up for those points and prizes, around Monaco in particular. Get it right on Saturday, and even if you aren't the fastest car, you could win the race. The other way to play yourself in at Monaco is through strategy, and we know how good Red Bull are at that, so it will be interesting to see what they can do, although there's talks of weather, and I'll touch on that in my overall thoughts in a bit. Modern circuits allow drivers to make mistakes. Monaco does not. If you get it slightly wrong, you're going to be in a metal barrier, and it's not only going to cause the end of your race, but it's going to be painful as well from a physical and mental point of view. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So the two key ways of winning this race for me are through strategy and getting that right, or by qualifying on pole on Saturday and making sure that you're sat at the front, you get away well at the start, and then you can manage the race from there. My thoughts about the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix. So Charles Leclerc, it's his home circuit, but it's his bogey circuit, as we touched on a little bit earlier. Did not start in 2021. DNF in 2019. We missed a 2020 event due to COVID. DNF in 2018, and if you go back to 2017 when he was in F2, both the feature race and the sprint race, he DNF'd. Not good signs. We also let's touch on the recent shunt he had in the classic Niki Lauda Ferrari, which again was painful for anyone who loves their cars. But yeah, again, even in a routine drive like that, he had a crash. So it's really his bogey circuit, and that could affect him this weekend. It could play on his mind, but you know, last weekend at Spain he had that DNF, and I think he's motivated to come back stronger. Looking at the data analysis from Twitter, and particularly F1 data analysis on Twitter, they describe Ferrari as traction and acceleration monsters, which is super interesting. And I think that will bode well for Ferrari this weekend, going into a race where there's very little overtaking that can be done. If you can get out of the previous corner and not allow someone to get down the inside of you, I think you're safe in the main. So with Ferrari being what's called traction monsters and acceleration monsters, that bodes well for them. Carlos Sainz. I spoke a little bit in my previous video about Carlos Sainz and you know, his spin at turn 4 in his home race, and whether maybe Mick, being the nearly man at the moment, maybe he can push for a Ferrari seat. I'm not sure about that at the moment. Let me know in the comments. But in my previous video we had a little look at that. But also we spoke a bit about Sainz and how he may be able to get the resurgence to become the main man at Ferrari, and whether that's possible. I'm not so sure, even in the long term, whether that's possible. I said in the previous video that Charles and Carlos came into this season with, you know, a level playing field. I felt that they were very similar in pace and respect in the team. Charles obviously was there longer in Ferrari, so he was known as the main man, but he's really emphasised that thought this year, and has shown that he is the number one in that team. So whether Carlos can come back or not is one question. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. But he's got form here at Monaco. Last year he came second in a Ferrari that wasn't quick. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can take it to Charles or Max. My overall thought is I think if Ferrari can start on pole, then they win the race. Red Bull can play themselves in through strategy, and they are the best at doing this. But what can they do? If Charles is able to cover off those undercuts or the attempted overcut, then what can they do? But what about weather as well? That always is a factor at any race event. It's early signs are showing us that it's going to rain at 2 o'clock on Saturday, just before qualifying. So qualifying's at 3. So we may see a wet qualifying or even a wet Q3, which would really spice up the grid. It's supposed to rain from 8 AM on Sunday through to about 8 PM. So it's likely we're going to see a wet race, whole weekend of wet weather. So that's going to be really interesting to view as well, what's going to happen there. I think if that does happen, we may see Red Bull take this win. However, for me, I think Charles Leclerc could well win his home event. That's who I'm going with as my winner. The Monaco Grand Prix, I don't really think it's going to matter what the weather. I think he's going to get that monkey off his back and go and get that win. It's either win or bust for him at Monaco at the moment. So hopefully we can see him grab a win. I think Carlos could put it in second if he qualifies well, but it's going to be difficult to beat Max. But I'm going with a Charles Leclerc win, Sainz second, so a Ferrari 1-2. And Verstappen will come home in third, because he just won't have answers for those Ferraris. So who wins this race for you? Let me know in the comments below. Who do you think is going to perform well? Who do you think is going to get on that podium? Even with minimal overtaking, I do think it's going to be a fascinating race. I really do. It's great to see drivers pushing right to the limit, where they know that if they get it just a tiny bit wrong, they're going to end up in the barriers and race over. Thanks for watching. as ever, the Motorsport Oracle will wait and see.